Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to this week's episode of Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matt Peverell and I'm joined by my co-host as always, Mark Davison. Mark, how's it going?
I'm going all right, Matty. Bit upset, with the Steelers losing, and we're going to get into that today with our show being the Steelers' stolen season and all those kinds of things. Overall, this is probably one of the toughest losses I think I've seen in a long time. The Steelers just didn't show up, and from the first snap, 7-0, and we're like, okay, that's all right. The next minute, it was down 14-0, and then it just went all to shambles. So this is going to be, I don't want to be too negative on this show. I try and be as positive as I can, but it's going to be an interesting show, and to wrap things up as well.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you asked me the question when we got off air last week. Are the Steelers, Mark said to me, for all the listeners to the audio podcast, if you're listening on replay, or like the YouTube guys that are listening live right now, and we've got, Ty in there, Thaddeus, Isaac Aguilera, there's some regular names, Daredevil as well, Boo Bash, Gyro, so we're getting some of the regulars in now, and we've already, I think it's almost like 100 people sitting in there. But,
Whoa.
Mark said to me when we finished after last week, he said, Matt, you reckon they've got this? And I just said to him, yeah, you know what? The score might be tight, but Steelers have got this. Well, here we are, a week later-ish, and joining live from the future as we always do on our Sunday morning, your Saturday evening, and the Steelers are out of the playoffs. This weekend, you got to watch the Browns, who we played last week, up against the Kansas City Chiefs, which I think the game's already kicked off. But no one expected to be here. And that's why you look at the title of today's show, which is why 2020 is the Steelers' stolen season. And we'll get into that in today's show. But there's various reasons as to why this is the case. We're not going to just sit here and harp on last week's game. Everyone's had a week to sort of deal with that, the loss. And, we're going to need more time to deal with it. But we also have got lots of news from this week. There's lots of things that can leave you either hopeful for the future, or if I'm looking at some of the comments now, people are already taking issue with some of the stuff that's going to be happening, in the Steelers' future for 2021 that's already been locked in. We'll get into all of that in today's show. We're also toward the back end of the show. I mean, obviously raise questions throughout the show as always, but the back end, we're going to try to give you a good 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A, fan forum. You can quench that angry thirst in terms of reactions to last week games. You can query us, query other guys out there of what's going to happen. But we want to give you guys a bit of a chance for a bit of a fan forum as well. But look, let's crack into it. So, Mark, this week, I mean, you talk about that loss. I mean, that game, it was almost, you said it to me, and Dave Schofield said it on the Scobro show. The Steelers didn't look like they turned up to play. And you said it to me in chats as well. I mean, really, from Pouncey's first snap, it was a situation whereby the Steelers were looking at each other, waiting for someone else to make a play. We talked about, there was so much chatter before last week's game about Steelers resting players and then being in a situation where would they come up and would they perform? It wasn't even so much as the guys they rested didn't perform. The guys around them just waited for something to happen.
Yeah, that's my major issue, I think, with this season and with this game. So, and I want to put it this way as best I can. And because we're all fans of the team, the Steelers team, BTSC, we're all great fans. We all buy our jerseys. We buy our tickets. We do everything as fans to love and support and cherish our team to do the best they can. So we put all that energy goes into our Pittsburgh Steelers. And then what is so frustrating, and I love my team. I've loved them forever, and so have you guys in BTSC. But what is frustrating is when you put all that energy, and the next minute you see a snap that is a regular snap that happens all day, every day. Pouncey's been in the league 10 years, and he snaps it over someone's head, and then next minute you've got almost a safety, but turns into a touchdown. 7-0, 14 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock in the first quarter. That's okay, fine. Then Big Ben goes down the field and I think we get a first down, and the next minute throws a duck egg, picked off. This one goes back 14-0, 21-0, 28-0 in the first quarter. And as a Steeler fan and any fan of any sport, if your team doesn't show up and doesn't want to play and they're too busy dancing what's the point? Like, I love Shazier. I'm putting the Shazier jersey on. Like,
I got the Devon Bush, mate. I got his replacement.
this is what we do to support our team. And
Yeah.
I don't care if, this is my rant, but I don't care if we lose by 3 or 7, as long as we played a good game and the football was good. But Big Ben threw 4 interceptions and he threw 4 touchdowns. I can't remember the 4 touchdowns. All I remember is how poor we played.
Yeah, and it's something that you hit the nail on the head, Mark, because the thing is, and everyone in this live chat right now, or anyone listening to the podcast version of our show for this week, will know this feeling. You sat there in that first quarter and you went, the Steelers aren't going to win this game. If you're using your head, the Steelers aren't winning that game. But your heart's saying the Steelers are going to win this game. And I remember some of the messages in the Slack channel for BTSC, and it was like they're out. And you and I were sitting there hopeful. I mean, everyone still had that hope, but most of us realistically going, they're out. I mean, the way they came back toward the last 5 minutes, or the way they started to show something in the last 5 minutes of that second quarter, I ended up ringing up my betting company locally because, you know, here in Australia, obviously, we can't bet live on things unless you call up. You can't do it through our electronic systems. I rang them up. The Steelers were paying, for every $1 you put on them, they were paying $11.50, right?
They would have laughed at you.
They did. The woman said, "Are you sure you want the Pittsburgh Steelers halfway through the game down?" But she literally said that to me. She goes, "This is the score." I said, "Yep, that's what I want. I'll take it. I'll put $15 on that. You know, if they win, I get a new jersey. I pay for my NFL Game Pass for next season, right?" So I did it. And then you watch, and then you're hopeful. And then suddenly, like, I'm texting my fiance, just before the fourth quarter, I'm like, the Steelers are down by 12. Can you believe it? I put $15 on, paying $11.50. It's coming off. And I'm known for coming back with some crazy bets. And she's like, oh, look, they should come home with it now, what have you. But it's a fan. I sat there with my head going, this is $15 that I probably could have watched, and it would have been more interesting if I lit it on fire. But I still wanted to do it, Like, you still love the team that you want to do that. I mean, the Devon Bush jersey I'm wearing right now, I had a Steelers order from the Steelers Pro Shop come this week. And I remember talking about in the Slack channel going, I might have to not open that, this week. I might save it for the off-season round and draft and feel good about it. And then when it arrived, the day it arrived, I opened up and I went, nah, this is my team. Like, just because they lost, wear that passion, wear that pride, wear it around everywhere. It hasn't stopped me wearing Steelers gear. I mean, had a debate with a fan in the NFL Done Under Facebook group the other day who's a Patriots fan about it. He was trying to give, the Steelers stick. They didn't even make the playoffs. They can shove it. But you hit the nail on the head, Mark, there. There's so much pain because we're so passionate as a fan base.
100%. And, they really just didn't show up. Like, I think we've seen this current theme. We're going to get into this show as well. Like the good, bad, and the ugly kind of stuff, and we're a stolen season because the last 3 seasons, we have seen this kind of offense, and the defense can play awesomely, and we get 200 sacks over like 4 seasons. That's heaps good. That's great. But when it comes to the playoffs, we can't get one. So it's like it's a different. It's a flip of the coin where it's like one side we're really great and awesome, and the other side we're doing nothing, absolutely nothing. And you go to Raider territory down in Las Vegas now. You go all the way there, and you lose by 30. You verse the Eagles in week 3 or whatever it was a few years ago, we lose by 30. These games that we need to play and turn up and show up and win and play competitively. They don't do that. And that's the culture at this moment. There's no real leadership in that locker room that says, we all know Big Ben's a great player, but he's not really a leader. They need someone to step up, shake them by the shoulder pad and say, look, wake up. You're a Pittsburgh Steeler. You've got the fan base around you. You've got great coaches around you. You've got everything around you for you to succeed. And when you lay a duck egg like that, 28-0 versus the Browns are a good team. They're doing good, but we let that game just go away. And that was what's most painful. I'm still painful. I can't, like, the Browns are playing tomorrow, Ravens today. I want to watch it because it's good football, but it's so hard to watch without us being there.
Yeah, but this is such the hard part about it. And this is why we talk about a stolen season. Like, what's the point? Like, quite frankly, what's the point in getting 208? I think it's 208 sacks over the 4 seasons. I think that was, if I remember correctly, from the Scobro show this week. Oh, the Stat Geek show, Dave's Stat Geek show. Now, if the Steelers ranked in the top 10, but not first in sacks, and we won the Super Bowl, the fan base we'd all be a lot more happier right now. we'd be a lot more happy right now. It doesn't matter that we got 208 sacks if you're not going to make a sack in a playoff game and you're not going to win a Super Bowl. It doesn't make a difference. So this is when we say stolen season, it doesn't make a difference that the offensive line kept Ben upright for, I think it's the lowest sacks he's ever been sacked for in a season. I think he got sacked. There were 14 sacks this offensive line let through. Ben got sacked 13 times. Does that matter if you don't win? Those things matter if you do win. But if you don't win, what's the point? We've got these great players that we bring in, TJ Watt led the league in his 15 sacks. That's really important for us going forward if we keep him. But does it matter when that we've got three wide receivers of the 800 that, caught over 800 receiving yards? Yeah, that matters because it shows that our offense was doing something. But for Juju Smith-Schuster particularly getting that many yards, he's leaving next year. He's out. Did he win a Super Bowl with the Steelers? No, he didn't. Did he win a playoff game with the Steelers? No, he didn't. So this is the thing that's really difficult. And this is what fans need. I think that we all as fans, and, you and I are lucky we get this forum with a microphone, that's what we need to be thinking about. That all these great things, they don't matter. And that's what this off-season's about, what are we doing to make it matter next season? We got the idea for the theme of this week's show about the stolen season. You saw this year JJ Watt go up to Deshaun Watson and say, I'm sorry for wasting one of your years. That's what it felt like with this team because there are a bunch of guys leaving. Ben said it countless times. He came back to win championships for Pouncey and Cameron Hayward and Joe Hayden and those guys. That's wasted. That's wasted now. Ben might not be back. So this is what the real big, consideration's got to be this offseason is we don't want another wasted season. We can't afford it.
It's the same as the last 3 years, really. Even when Big Ben went down, that was kind of troublesome. But I just get that feeling that there's something we can be a great team and we have great skill position players and stuff like that. All that jazz we love. We went 12-4 this season and we won the AFC North. But the way how we ended it was incredible. So we lived in our fears and 11-0, we're the worst team in history. That came true. That really came true. And we sat here a few months ago saying, nah, we're pretty good. We're the best. We're really good. We got a big band farm. Pick your poison. We've got the greatest defense. I named all the characters in the defense. And then you go 1-5 in your last game. Yeah, there's something that has to. The worst part is we only get the 24th pick. We really should be getting the 10th pick because that's how poorly we played near the end. So we've got a super chat, Matty, coming up.
We do. I let it sit there. I wanted us to get that little bit off our chests, But yeah, we've got one from Absolute Regular, big fan of the show, Snowman, $5 in the tip jar there with this super chat. What do you think of Matt Canada being named offensive coordinator? Mark, I'll give you first dibs at this one.
I don't know too much about the bloke, to be honest. He's only been there about 1 year or so. He was under Finkner. I'm glad that Finkner is gone. I was with the play calling. Surely there can be something more creative, and you can do things a lot better in the run game, pass game, blocking game. There's something that he wasn't doing. I called that Watt play versus the Browns when they did it the second time, and you're like, what? Why? I can see this. If I can see this, the Browns can see it. They motioned the tight end backwards. It worked the first time, and that was the first time they gave the ball to Watt. They gave the ball to Watt the first time, in a year. Gets the first down, but then a few plays later, they use Watt again in the exact same formation and the exact same play. And the Browns are going to go, they're going to, oh my God, we're going to see this. And all right, we got him. And then Pouncey got pushed back. There was no creativity in that offense at all. There's similar plays with the two wide sets. They've done it a million times now. That didn't work. Offensive line goes down the field. They get a penalty. Look, if you and I can see it, and I don't know too much about X's and O's, but if I can see what's going to happen, or I think what player, or I can predict which player is going to get the ball, that's a huge problem, and I'm glad that's addressed. But I kind of feel it's the same thing like now as well. With the stolen season, if you kind of knew Randy was bad going into this season, you just wasted that season having Randy there the whole time. What you knew.
Let's save Randy after this super chat because, mate, I'm going to absolutely tee off on that one. So let's just, for me with Matt Canada, two things. I mean, obviously there's and a couple of guys in the live chat have said it there. He was interviewing, the Dolphins wanted him as well. I actually don't think this has been certified yet with Matt Canada. I think they still have to do an interview. It's not been officially done yet because they haven't, under the Rooney rule with a offensive or defensive coordinator, you have to interview at least one minority candidate. So whilst he might be the pick, they still have to go through that process, unless there's something in the last sort of hour that I've seen differently that might have gone on in news that have come out. But the thing about Canada is if we look at what the fan base has been sitting there, we've had Ben sit in the pocket and what have you. Canada, he runs a sort of offense where you would really enjoy a quarterback or a quarterback who can run when needed, like a Josh Allen. So if anything, and obviously the game's going that way. I mean, we're seeing that through college football. Every quarterback that's coming through has got some ability to run the football and rush. So if anything, I think for Steelers fans out there, you look at if Matt Canada is going to be the offensive coordinator and we are going to do a lot more of these jet motions and sweeps and what have you, I'm really open to seeing what that does, because at the end of the day, we're going to have the turnover in this offensive line, and we'll get through that in today's show. Also, when it was working early in the season, Deontay Johnson was doing well. Chase Claypool was doing well. Those guys are back next year. It's something that I think we should all be really open to. And at the end of the day, can it be much worse than Randy Land? And if it is worse, we'll get a really high draft pick who might be our next future franchise quarterback.
Do you think, Matty, that with Canada's offense, I get this feeling they're going to use McFarlane more and they have to use the running backs more in the backfield and draws, maybe like some screens that actually work, pushing the pocket forward. Like they have to get them involved where they can get the underneath routes and get like 5 or 6 yards. And that's going to set up the short passing game or the long passing game. Because we had no running game this year whatsoever. We had no identity with the running game, being 32nd in the league, which was the lowest. And maybe that's like another reason why we didn't go very far in the playoffs, because all of the NFL said to us, you need a running game to succeed. And that's shown. Like, it's just amazing that the culture with our running game since the days of Bettis and blokes like that, Willie Parker and even Mendenhall for a little bit, like they were getting big carries, and now it's nothing. Like it's so. I don't know if we need to draft a running back, but I think we need to get some play calling where it gives our players a chance. Like, do you think like Canada's going to use their running game a lot, better for worse? How's he going to do it?
The thing about a running game is like, I mean, for all we know, and most of us would argue with what I'm about to say. Even I'm going to argue what I'm about to say. In terms of Randy Land might have had the best running game ideas in the world, right? I mean, I don't think he did. But at the end of the day, the offensive line, there's no holes. Like if there's no space to run, like quite frankly, like if you're not going to run into a brick wall, you're going to run through the doorway. And it's the same thing there. Like there was no holes coming off that offensive line. Like the offensive line was trying to hold players and turn and create holes instead of going to that second level. And that's just, it's very hard for that to work in this day and age in the NFL. And, so I'm interested to see what Matt Canada can do with that rushing offense.
That's a good point, though. I remember one of the analysts for the Steelers maybe said that. Might have been when that big Tunch bloke said what they were doing was pushing and turning, whereas that might have worked with a Le'Veon Bell or someone who's more elusive. But for a Snell runner, he needs to get that open lane, and he never had any vision towards that. And we didn't. The reason I think we both even said last week we had to start Dotson, and they started Filer. Nothing against Filer, like he's probably an awesome player. But with Dotson, how well he was playing, you shouldn't have brought him off the field. You had him for a bit of push, and he's a big fella. Next to Pouncey, those two could really move that pocket and then have chances to move the ball. But they never did that. And I saw so many plays like that where they would just grab them, turn. Maybe that's a technique. But there was, you're getting 0 yards, 2 yards, and they didn't even run. They run it once because they were down by so much. But they ran it once in the second half. Like, it's crazy for us to say that. And now the NFL was like they're laughing at us, really. Like, if we haven't got 0 run game and they don't respect that, then you're going to get targeted on the receiving game.
But you're exactly right there. Like, when you look at Le'Veon Bell, I mean, you don't have to be – I mean, this just makes sense from a physics point of view. If you're going to turn and create that gap and he's going to sit there. Because remember, he'd always sort of take he'd sort of step and see where the gap is and then go through it.
Mm.
Well, you don't have James Conner's a different running back. So if the offensive line's going to just turn and there's no gap, he's going to get stifled either whether it's through the interior defensive line of the other team, their outside linebackers, or the pressure that those guys are turning those holes and they're just getting absolutely smashed. But it's so predictable. Like you talked about that, like picking the plays. Like you and I, like literally, for all those listening live right now or listen to the audio podcast, Mark and I were typing the same message. It's going to what? Right now, we were literally typing the same message, and at the same time, I had the Slack channel up, and I could definitely see that there were two other people from BTSC saying exactly the same thing. Everyone can pick it, and we're not the Browns who technically why they're Browns are the Browns, quote unquote. They at the end of the day, they're a professional football team.
Yeah, it was the formation though. You just knew the formation, and the down was what, 3rd and 1 or something. And you couldn't do a 5-wide set. You couldn't do a sneaky halfback draw. You couldn't, and we can even go into what was stolen from us was the 4th and 1. I think you have to go for that. Like that's a big point in the game where you're down by 12. I think you have to go for the 4th and 1. It's only 1 yard. You have to get it. You 100%. You don't put our best player out there, Berry, to punt the ball away, which he might be gone this year too. I reckon he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. but 100% it. How do you not go for that 4th and 1? And I can't remember on which show it was this week, but they said it, and it's hard for us because we come sort of they were the last show of the week, almost unless there's a preview game. So
not anymore though. Not anymore with the off season. I think we can almost be the first. We can.
We are the first. Was on a Sunday. We're on a Sunday anyway. Over here, down under 14 hours away. But but. There was that sort of phrase there around, I lost my train of thought there, Mark. You got me on that one. But
we're talking about the 4th and 1 with
yes, that's right. That's right. Dave said it. I think it was in the post game show. Mike Tomlin sits around there and says, "Don't live in your fears." If you don't live in your fears, you go for it on 4th and 1.
Yeah,
I think every time. And it's interesting, and I want to move on to some of the news of the week. But the news of the week actually has me really fired up because Mike Tomlin, the loss isn't, and this is going to be controversial, and I reckon we're going to get a few chats here when I'm going to say, this loss is less on Tomlin as it is on the players that went out there. Like at the end of the day, he doesn't snap the ball. He doesn't miss tackles. Like he doesn't get burned like Mike Hilton got absolutely burned by Jarvis Landry. He doesn't throw interceptions. That's not on Mike Tomlin. Equally, if his coordinators are going to call the plays, that's on them. Randy Land, he's been the one that's been calling the plays apart from Ben. At times, that's on Randy Land as far as I'm concerned. But what I am happy about is the news that we've got this week, which most people will be aware of. Randy Land gone, Sean Surrett gone, Tyler Bradley's gone. We want to probably keep Terrell Austin. We hope he doesn't get that defensive coordinated job over at the Titans. The Titans coach, last name Daniels, he's retiring. But the best news of the week, Randy Land, who is the Class Action Park one of offensive coordinators, and for everyone out there in the US, you probably know what I'm talking about there. I just recently watched the documentary on Class Action Park, but absolutely diabolical. Randy Land shut the gate, closed down, being bulldozed. See you later, Pittsburgh. And I do have to say, from all accounts, he's a really nice bloke, but he's not an offensive coordinator. And as you said, Mark, there with Canada, we do not have to see Randy Land anymore winning.
Well, with Randy, he's probably a great bloke, and I'd buy him a beer. Actually, he should buy us 2 beers.
He should buy you and I a beer, mate.
Like he probably is, but from what we know throughout the past few seasons, it just wasn't working. It was there were really some great highs. Like we had some great touchdowns, and some of the plays you go, wow, you got that to Washington or Claypool's in there. But there's some really sketchy calls where you're like, why are you running this play? Like at 3rd and 2 or at the goal line, you can't get the Snell into the goal line. The thing that frustrates me the most I love Tomlin and I love what he's been doing, and he's never had a losing season and all that kind of stuff. That's cool. That's great. There are some critics over Tomlin, but the thing I find about Tomlin is you have all those speeches, fantastic. But then the preparation for the whole week, and then you come out like that. And that's happened so many times. So it's getting to the point now where it's like we have to nip this in the butt and you have to just go out there and play. I don't care if you lose. If you go out there, and even like the Jets this year, they went 2-14, but the last few games they won. They had a great performance and they were winning. So, but you do all that preparation, and this is their job. This is their livelihood. This is what they do. Tomlin does this for a living, and you can't get the 4th and 1, or you can't get your fellas to get riled up, and like they do that, like the wee ride, and they get everyone fired up, and then it turns to dust.
But yeah, no, you're totally right. But that's what inspires me about the idea that they're saying it's not good enough from Randy Land, it's not good enough from Sean Surratt, it's not good enough from Badley, it's not good enough, from Keith Butler. He's only doing a 1-year deal, and I know he's older toward the end of his coaching career. But if people are going to question Tomlin, and fair enough in doing it, because they're not winning in a convincing way, and at the end of the day, we're not winning. Like, we haven't got a Super Bowl in the last decade. We haven't won a playoff game in 5 years. Like, we're not winning. So it doesn't matter what Ben or particularly will say about that either. We are not winning. But what I like about Tomlin is this shows that he's got a bit of fight in him. This shows that he's going, this isn't good enough. I need to change. We need to change. It's not working. He said things to that effect in this week's press conference. For me, the thing about Tomlin as well is that in a completely different sport, occasionally when I watch the English Premier League soccer, I support Arsenal, and they had a coach for 20 years that regularly got them into the Champions League, top 4 place year after year. Since he's gone, they're middle of the ladder. At the start of this season, they were going to get knocked out of the league. So I understand the criticism of Tomlin, and he deserves a lot of it. But the idea of Tomlin leaving, we could end up with a lot worse a coach. So that's why I'm saying I think it's really awesome that we've seen Randy Land shut down, bulldozed, see it, never be reenacted again. Sean Surratt goes. He's been there a long time. Couldn't be that heir apparent to Mike Munchak. We're starting to see this turnover. So I think that's a good thing. Things go to the when stuff hits the fan, it's good to take restock, rethink, recharge, get it right.
Look at this one, Matty. Peggy, let me try and pronounce this last name. Peggy Pitsenbarger from Facebook. That's a great point.
Say it Scottish. Say it Scottish. It might sound like Pittsburgh.
Scottish?
Pitsenbarger. That was a terrible Scottish accent, by the way.
She makes a great point. It's like they were using us for practice. And that's what it looked like. Because even in that Browns game, when our defense, that first drive, were they doing warm-ups? Was no one tackling? Was like,
but
7 on the board? Oh.
But this is it. Like, you talk about Randy. Let's talk about Randy Land a little bit more. There was one thing I wanted to mention before. If Randy Land was such a good quarterbacks coach, how come when Ben's out last year, there was all this talk about Mason not having a dedicated quarterbacks coach? Well, obviously Randy was out of his depth there because he couldn't structure an offense around a quarterback. That is literally what you've done in your whole career. And I know I'm simplifying it, but at the end of the day, he couldn't do it for them. He had the offensive mind to think that Devlin Duck Hodges was going to beat the Buffalo Bills in week 15 of the 2019 season instead of Mason Rudolph. That was never going to happen. So this is the thing. And then you look at the comment that Peggy just brought up. They looked like they were using us for practice. We were the Browns and they were the Pittsburgh Steelers. They played our game. They turned up to play. They capitalized on mistakes. They held strong to the end. That was the Pittsburgh Steelers performance rather than what we played, which was like the Browns.
Oh yeah. If we made that 28-0, we would be so happy, and 7-0, 14-0, like we'd be the happiest of all people in the world, like for their Steelers. But I don't know. I think it's a really, really big culture thing that's got to change. And Tomlin did make some good decisions with their coaches now, getting rid of Randy. Even now, if Matt Canada isn't that good, it doesn't really matter because we've got a fresh start and we've got to build on that. And I think as well, like next year in 2021, draft some cool players, get things going. But I think you have to, like, one mentality I want to change, and we can talk about this maybe in the future as well. I think we need some statement wins. We know how, like, with Tomlin, he doesn't put the score up anymore. We have to do that. We have to beat someone by 48-0, or we have to just keep going because we play up to a competition and we say, oh, they're a really hard team. We play up and we just win by 7 or something, or we play down to our competition a lot. And now I've been a fan for a bit, and I was like, oh no, we don't do that. But we really do. Looking at like the last 4 or 5 years now, It happens so many times where if the Raiders stink and they're 2-11, we play to a 2-11 team like we did the Bengals and even Washington. We're a solid team, but I don't know. There needs to be some form of energy where they're like, okay, you're all great players. Just don't worry about the other team. To keep doing your craft, keep pushing as hard as you can, and put the score up like the Ravens do. The Ravens don't stop in the preseason. They put on 50 on people if they want to. But so something has to change.
I agree with you. And you know what? You know why I agree with you? I don't want to be sitting here, and hopefully we've still got this fan forum on BTSC, and we'll be doing our how many 100th show by then. I don't want to be sitting here in 2, 3, 5 years' time, and because quite frankly, the Browns are going to keep a decent team now. They're not going to be the Browns that we've seen over the last 15 years. The Ravens are always there with us. And the Bengals, if they get a couple of offensive linemen and they keep some of the young wide receivers they've got with Joe Burrow, all things being equal, they're going to be really successful. I don't want to be sitting here and go, the Steelers missed the postseason because we didn't rack up enough points, or we didn't, beat certain teams by certain margins to, get tiebreakers and whatever. Because that's the thing. And Jeffrey Benedict talked about this really well on Know Your Enemy this week. The AFC North is arguably going to be if it's not already, and I think it is, the most competitive division in the NFL. You can't afford to, beat a team by 1 or 2 points here and there, because that actually might cost you getting into the playoffs with a wild card spot down the track. So, and you're right though, but on those statement wins, us as a fan base, we need to see that. We need to see the Steelers put it to the sword, because it's exactly what you said before, and it's what Peggy said about them. We look like we were their practice squad, or you said it, Mark. They didn't turn up to play. We don't know how to put a team to the sword. How are we going to be mentally aggressive, mentally tuned when it comes to the playoffs? We don't have that killer instinct. And to win in the NFL, you need that killer instinct.
Well, here's a good point, Matty. Do you think in the AFC North rankings, so the AFC North now is quite a talented spot with the Ravens of who they are? They've got the killer instinct, and they want to, they will put 50 on a bye. They will do everything to win, and with Wang Harms, he's like, that's nickname BTSC gave him. But where do the Pittsburgh Steelers rank in the AFC North? Because I'm thinking it's fourth. It feels like it's fourth at the moment because we didn't make it. Like the Bengals are getting better, and if they do have some, like someone just said in the live chat there, that receiver Deontay Smith, or that bloke, one of the higher price receivers, if he goes to the Bengals, and Joey Burrow is a good quarterback and has some more help in the offensive line, they're playing competitively how we versed them this year. And Steelers with Big Ben now, he's on his 18th season and it didn't work this year. Do we rank fourth? If the Browns keep to go, if the Browns win tomorrow, are we the worst in the division? It certainly feels like a little bit like that. What do you reckon?
Yeah, that's a great question. The right answer is to say whoever wins each year is the best team in the division. Right?
Well, that's it. So next year we've got like all the hard teams, and we'll have less talent.
Look, I'm someone that believes you should always win, but if you're the sort of fan that goes, you know what, we haven't won in a decade, I'm willing to sacrifice another season. It's only a tenth of what I've dealt with for a decade in not winning a Super Bowl. You go, all right, I'm going to get thrashed by everyone and draft my next franchise quarterback with a really high pick, with great guys on defense, with experience. Chase Claypool in his third year, Deontay in his fourth year. You're sort of sitting there going, Dotson in his third year, a couple of the offensive guards that they'll probably draft this season's draft. You probably go, that sets me up for a franchise win like we did the season before we drafted Ben. So there's a silver lining in every scenario. And it's brought up in the live chat. I mean, hypothetically, 4 teams from the AFC North could make the playoffs now with the 7 teams that are allowed. Yeah. I mean, hypothetically, and this is an interesting thing that the NFL is going to have to answer, because, that's very difficult for their footprint all over the country and different fans. So it's pretty interesting from that perspective. But look, Mark, before we wrap up part one, anything else that you wanted to just say and air out after last week's performance? You and I have had to hold this up for almost a week. It's been tough, and you can probably hear it in my emotions. I just need to get it all out there, get it off the chest, go into the off season, which we've already started, and start getting things right for 2021.
Yeah, I think we did pretty well in airing our grievances and stuff like that. Just the biggest issue I find is now the culture. Something needs to change. These players, and I know they're all professionals, and I've never played football, and I'm the one saying this, but they know this. They have to just turn up, and out-muscle someone, outthink someone, be like Troy, like do something creative like that. You can't watch other players make plays. You've got to make plays. Mike Hilton got burnt on that number 80, and I called that as well. There's just something.
I just want to pick up on that. Mike Hilton, and sorry, because I had to get that off my chest.
Yeah, mate.
Well. But Mike Hilton, we talk about re-signing him, and I'm not disputing he's done such great things all year. But speed at the cornerback position is really important. You can't teach speed. That's in any sport around the world. You cannot teach speed. You either have it or you don't. You can get faster, you can get more endurance, but you cannot teach raw speed. On raw speed, Mike Hilton's 40-yard dash time is 0.22 of a second faster than Jarvis Landry. He got burned on that play. Now, I know other things went on in that play from a schematics point of view, but I'm not re-signing Mike Hilton at plus $6-7 million, which is what some teams will pay him, to get burned like that against Jarvis Landry twice a season or 3 times a season if they make the playoffs. So that's just my little 10 cents on Mike Hilton.
That certain play, though, with the motion, maybe with our motion with Matt Canada, we might get that. But I think everyone saw that. Once they motioned Jarvis Landry at the backfield, number 80, you almost knew that he was going to cut back, or you knew he was going to be involved in that play. Just the way that how it was set up. And you had Mike Hilton on the run. And by the time Hilton got there, he set the ball so quick. And then Mike Hilton was off his feet and he's wide open. So that's something that, they used our game. We should have been doing that. Hopefully do that in the future where we can move players around and get the defensive thinking. So, yeah, to wrap everything up and like how this season has gone, like for me, it's like you went 11-0, fantastic. First time in history that we've done that. But then how do you go 1-5? You just can't do that. That's something that doesn't happen. And this would be the stolen season. This would be historically one of the worst seasons I think we've had. At the same time, it was a great season. So it's like,
yeah, are
we on a roller coaster? Like, I really don't know. But I think next year, what will make me so happy in the first game, even preseason, but the first game is would holding someone under 10 and us getting 30 to 40, like 35 points. Because we
want to see those wins. Yeah, let's see those wins, mate.
You've got to change something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. Well, for all the live listeners there, we're only going to take a quick second break. For all those of you on the audio platforms, that wraps up part 1. Stay tuned for part 2. Look forward to joining you there. And we're back on Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matt Peverell, and I'm joined by my co-host, as always, Mark Davison, as we start our first show, or the part 2 of our first show of this off-season. Mark, we were pretty fired up in part 1. We were pretty fired up, but it's deep into 5 p.m. now over there in the US, and particularly on the Eastern Coast. You're trying to relax. It's your weekend. So let's start with something a bit more fun, which is our usual sling and the slang section. So that's where we like to, Ben likes to sling the rock, and he slung the rock way too many times last week. We like to sling the slang and give you guys a taste of, a bit of Aussie talk. Mark, what's your Aussie slang for this week?
I've got 2 because I was going to use one that's a bit more negative, but I won't go into that. But I'm just going to, we're on a positive. It's our off season, so you throw me a curveball here. But I'm trying to think, what do they call? How I haven't got near me, but you put your drink in something. What would you call that?
Oh,
when you put a bottle, right? You put your
like
beer or your
beer sleeve, or like your coastie. Do you ever call it coastie? Is it coastie?
Well, I think for us we call them stubby holders.
Oh, stubbies. Stubbies, yeah,
stubbies, right? So if you guys are having a drink or chilling out, having a Coke, Pepsi, or having a beer or whichever, In Australia, we call them stubby holders and then stubbies. And then that, there's a million other names as well. But I think in America, they call them coolies.
Coolies, yeah. But they're also not just stubbies. Stubbies, though, are also like the shorts you wear when you're like in school as well.
Oh, yeah. They're right up, though. Some of those.
Yeah,
some of those
they're pretty short. Yeah, they're pretty short.
What's your one this week?
Yeah, so this one was one for the road or roadie. So that's what we call it, right? So I was thinking it's a long road this off season. It's the road to the Steelers' next Super Bowl. It's a long one. But when you call a roadie, that's sort of like the alcoholic beverage that you might take as you're on your way to a function. So often we'll stick on when we're in the car or something like that.
Yeah.
Or it might be one when you say, one more for the road. It's kind of calling the last drinks. So this is very much one. I thought, why not? One for the road to sort of say goodbye to 2020, and one for the road in 2020 NFL season, and one for the road to say, we've got a long road this off season. So
I want to hear what BTSC calls a roadie. If you're going to a function, you have, just going to grab one for the road. What if you guys in the comments can, you have a drink before you go out? Do you guys do that? Like, we have a roadie, or that'd be quite interesting to know for sure.
Yeah,
sometimes you have 2 or 3 roadies on the way.
There you go. Ty's saying a road pop.
Road pop. Never heard that.
One for the ditch. See, in Australia, we say across the ditch, and that's when we say something's happening across the ditch, that's what's happening in New Zealand, because you can you can actually swim to New Zealand if you want to. That's a good one. Do you know one time, Mark? Have you ever heard the one where you can pop a bottle cap off a bottle on the side of a curb, the street curb? You can do it if you do it right on the corner. You can tap it, and I did it, and the top of the bottleneck snapped, and I cut all down my finger. I was going out to dinner, so when I sort of held it up in my hand, and when I got to the venue, they didn't have any what do they call it in America? Plasters, or we call them Band-Aids here. So then they end up getting electrical tape and tying up my hand in like duct tape, and I just continued the night on. But Thaddeus, what's a
pre-gaming?
Pre-gaming, yeah, we call it here.
Yeah.
Thaddeus, what's a booze bus? A booze bus is so the laws are a bit different over here compared to your different states, but that's where you get breathalyzed by the police to see if you're over the limit.
Or it's a bunch of people in a bus going to a function, having a few roadies, having drinks on the way.
Isn't that a party bus?
We call it whatever. It's something like that. We've got another super chat, Matty.
We've got some super chats. Let's address the super chats. One from Ty, who's been very busy in the live chat today, which is awesome. So he gives us, are they 5 Canuck bucks? Is that what we're calling them on BTSC? Canuck bucks? That's apologies for last week's gents. Realised may have been a bit more apt. It was slightly less insulting. Ha ha ha. Said dog's dinner, done up like a dog's dinner. Now, we certainly didn't take offense to that, but certainly, I think that comment was a funny one if you're going to say that to someone else. That's awesome. So, look, Mark, we've talked a little bit about this in the slang. We talked a little about last week. What's got you hyped up this week? What's actually got you hyped up about where things are sitting for 2021?
It's got to be the idea of getting rid of Finkner and starting fresh. And I don't care who is that offensive play caller, if it's Matt Cannon or whoever. I think you just need to start fresh, and you have to, like I said, you need to get this running game moving. You need motion. You need certain things to move. And I don't even care if we go 12-4 again. I just want to see competitive games. So, we'll address the draft. We'll watch the playoffs, and we'll go. I'll always watch the Super Bowl, even though a couple of years ago when it was Patriots versus Rams, one of the most boring Super Bowls in my life, when that was like, did you ever see that? That was, man, at halftime, it was like 3-0 or something. It was like, what is going on?
I turned it off, mate. I turned it off.
Oh, I don't know about the chat, guys, but that was a boring Super Bowl. The Rams come out and they were on fire, like the show on turf and all that kind of stuff. But then the Patriots, and it wasn't even good defense. It was just really poor offense. So, this season for 2021, like I just want, I want fans back in the stands. I want everything to start going better. But I just want to see this culture start to change, and where we're winning, but we're winning in a certain way with confidence, And I think that needs to happen in this locker room. Something's got to give. Like Tomlin's there, and he's had some really great seasons. And 12-4 is nothing. Like you look at the standings in 10 years' time, you're like, wow, 12-4. But you don't realize how that 12-4 happened. So, like, what do you think about this off season coming up?
Yeah, like I think Randyland's like obviously. I mean, I'm so thrilled about that. Like, I'm really happy about that. The one for me though as well, and I was really interested when Mike Munchak left, and I sort of was like, that's not necessarily my complete highlight of the week, but when Mike Munchak left, I thought, they're going to promote Sean Surratt. Hopefully he can do stuff with his offensive line, but the offensive line's been. From the passing side, obviously Ben only being sacked 13 times, Mason once in the final in week 17. That's really, really good. But if we're not getting any run game, it's like I said earlier in part one of the show. So what? So I'm really interested to see what they can do in terms of bringing in an offensive line coach, bringing an offensive coordinator who might call the run game, taking that pressure off the offensive line coach. But we've got a player like Kevin Dotson. Chooks has come on. They're obviously going to draft an offensive lineman within the first 3 picks of this year's draft. There's different other people that might be off contract that they'll pick up. The Steelers always find a diamond in the rough or at least a decent gemstone in the rough when it comes to offensive linemen if they pick them up from other teams and what have you. So I'm really interested to see from that perspective, what difference that makes to the Steelers. The other thing as well, it goes back to what I was saying in part one of the show where I think the Steelers are really open to change things up this year. I think they're really open to sort of going, we need to start afresh here, new decade. We haven't won. Let's get it right. So that's what sort of makes things happy for me. And equally, I don't think they're going to overpay people anymore. That's another difference that I think that I'm open to seeing.
Do you think with all this change, and this is a big call, is Big Ben part of this change? And will he set the standard and will they, use the Steelers around him? Or is it the moment where we bring in another person, like if Watson was available? I'm not even sure if he is because he doesn't want to be in Texan land anymore. But do you know what I'm saying? So it almost feels like now the AFC North has 3 young guns playing football and doing great, where we still have, we have Big Ben, but we know what Big Ben can be. He can be really awesome or he can be really bad. And when do you say to a player, mate, I think your time's up. I think you've had enough. Like, is this team going to be the last year for Ben, or is there something completely different?
Yeah. So, great question, and it's one that we're going to talk probably about a little bit about. It's going to be talked everywhere. And my feelings a bit more of this off air, Mark. No matter what Ben did this year, I've sort of felt it. Probably needed to be his last year, unless we lost the Super Bowl and he looked really convincing throughout the whole year. If he won the Super Bowl, no doubt he would have ridden off into the sunset. Didn't win the Super Bowl or average season. We go, is it worth it? Now, for all those that want Deshaun Watson out there, if you cut Ben, technically you can afford Deshaun Watson. So based on the number, Deshaun Watson's cap number for next year is $15.94 million. However, what you have to trade to get him and the dead money cap hit that is on the Houston Texans. And when I say what you have to trade him is in the Steelers players that are still on contract, right? And the draft picks and the ability to win without Deshaun Watson or to draft. I mean, because Deshaun Watson, he's going to have a high cap number for several years, for the rest of his career now. We could still go out there and get a rookie quarterback if it's not this year, next year. And it probably will need to be next year because of where we sit in the draft. And it's a low number, which means we can spend elsewhere to put that supporting cast around. So hypothetically, you can go get Deshaun Watson, right? Theoretically. But whether you can realistically get him is another question. That's sort of separate to, I guess it's a follow-on if Ben goes. My problem with Ben sitting there is at some point we are going to have to try the next generation. And if we lose, we will get a decent draft pick. Now, I'm not happy with losing, but you kind of almost just want to scrape into the playoffs at like 7-9 or 8-8 kind of thing, which is not going to be very difficult with how strong the AFC North is to be able to get that, rookie quarterback. If they are going to promote Matt Canada, Ben needs to have absolutely zero say when it comes to the overall offensive game because he's had his chance at doing that. He's had his chance. There's no Super Bowl in the last decade, right? And I always go back to, and I know it's a different sport, and I'm not the world's biggest soccer fan, but Sir Alex Ferguson, manager of Manchester United, won countless Premier Leagues, Champions Leagues, one of the greatest coaches of all professional sport, better record than Belichick. He always said, when he traded David Beckham, he said, there is no single player bigger than Manchester United. The club is more important than the player. Now, and I'm interested to see how many people have shifted this season in the fan base because we talked about this off air earlier on in the season. And I said to you, Mark, you'll remember this. And I said, Ben needs to not make all the decisions. The Steelers will be a franchise for another 80 years plus to come. And we need to do things that are right for the franchise. So my position is Ben's going to come back. What can we do team friendly? Now, obviously, there's 22.5 million of his 41 million that they can't touch, but it's got to be friendly. He's got to be open to developing that next round of rookie quarterbacks or whoever the future is if they manage to pull someone else off for another squad that's been cut or that, teams are open to trading. And he's got to fit in with Matt Canada's offense. And I don't know if Ben's the type of old dog that's prepared to learn a new trick. I don't think so.
Well, he's been in the game a long time, and I've grew up with Big Ben, and I've got his jersey, and I think he's one of the best players and future Hall of Famer. But there's a point where, okay, you're either all in and you have to try and get us a Super Bowl because that's what you're good at doing, or are you even capable to, not mentally, but I don't know. He's not mobile anymore. He doesn't do certain play actions. He's not like. There's got to be a point where you put the young buck in, like you draft someone as a quarterback, or Josh Allen is like a mini Big Ben, like they're pretty similar, and he's got 26 touchdowns, right? Like there's something that when you have Big Ben in the backfield, and one of the NFL guys said you just know what they're going to play because they've been playing that way forever. So I don't think we need to with the Steelers. We need to go. Tank the season. I never want to tank like some of the Jets fans or Jaguars fans.
I would never tank. I'm not a fan of tanking.
I don't agree with tanking. I don't agree with tanking. That's to me silly. I think
it's disrespectful to the game, and it's disrespectful when we talk about the Steelers. It's disrespectful to the black and gold. It's disrespectful for all the work that's gone into that brand.
We put the game on, and we want to see them win, and we want to see them succeed, even if we are 6-9, and it's our last game. We still want to win that game, and I know that some people think the draft order and stuff like that. And there's if you lose this game, you get this. I don't think that's not a winning mentality. I think this is what the Steelers have been doing. Has been trying their hardest, and we've always had that draft spot up the very top. But then we went and got Minka, and that kind of changed things. But I think with Big Ben, I think this call needs to comes early and say, look, I'm all in, and let's do it. I'm going to be on Canada. We're going to play that way and get a running game going. With a running game not being 32nd, being even 16th in the league, we have a chance to Big Ben played. There are points in that season where he played really well, and we're thinking, wow, three touchdowns and no interceptions. And there are other times where that pass he threw to that Browns bloke, he didn't even see him. And there's a point now where you've got Big Ben, Tom Brady still in the season. I've no idea how. I don't want to see him go to Super Bowl, but yeah, who you got? Breeze, Rivers. You have Manning in there. These blokes are 18, 19 seasons in. There's got to be a point where they pass the reins and they give it to someone else, and then as our fandom, if we saw someone new in there, it wasn't Rudolph, someone completely new, a rookie or whoever. Instantly, we're going to cheer for that guy and go, I hope he wins. We've heard some good things, and I want to see him for a good start. And there's going to be a bit of fresh air, let's get pumped up.
Fresh perspective.
I just think there's a time and a place. I think Big Ben wanted to go to Super Bowl and finish there, and he did all his stuff. But at the same time, when do you call it? And this is going to be the big question throughout this offseason. And the good thing was we got rid of Finkner, but when does Ben say, this is my last year, and you've got that great defense, and I don't know, dude. This is going to be a fun offseason. I think we can really jump into some of these things.
That's it. And I wanted to bring up Super Steelers chat here, which says the problem is not Ben. More like no run game and a lacking defense. Ben should not be throwing the ball more than 30 times a game. He will be just fine. I agree with some of that, just personally. I mean, there was no run game. the defense didn't turn up to play in the playoffs, but I mean, Ben will always want to throw the ball more. He cannot, well, cannot's the wrong word, but he doesn't want to throw play action. He doesn't, and this is the thing is, do you think that this is the question that the Steelers are going to have to answer, that Ben will have to answer, is will he adapt to what Matt Canada wants to do on offense? And do we have a running back to actually cover what Ben is able to do and cover up our deficiencies in the run game? I mean, that's the thing. It's one thing to blame no running game and therefore Ben's got to throw it. But Ben is more effective at the moment than what the run game's doing. Like, they go hand in hand. You've got to figure out a way to solve the 360 problem that is the Steelers offense right now. I mean, it's not, they work off each other. Now, before we go into a few more Q&A sort of questions, because we're getting lots of questions here, and we want to sort of we did say we'd give you a chance to air it out, and we've almost been going for that hour or so now. Mark, do you have a punt of the week, a bold prediction of the week for something around the NFL?
Yeah, because I've been wrong so many times this season, the Browns are going to win the Super Bowl. That's it. Browns are going to win. They're going to win. Browns are going to win 100-0. Because every punt I seemed to do with last week, the TJ getting 3 sacks, I was wrong. So I'm probably going to be wrong again. So Baker Mayfield's going to throw 2 touchdowns, 280 yards. There's going to be a punt return. They're going to get a fumble recovery from Aaron Rodgers. They're going to steamroll the Green Bay Packers 34-10.
Wow.
Yours?
My punt of the week, which is more like a punt for the next couple of seasons, we don't re-sign Juju. He gets offered too much money somewhere else, right? So he gets too much money out somewhere else, probably on the West Coast. He starts his little Cali life, whatever. Has a couple of rough seasons, whatever. Maybe 1 or 2. Then we pick him up on the cheap from somewhere else off like another for 3rd and 5th. And Juju finishes his career out as a Pittsburgh Steeler. And, is loved by the fan base. Again, he's a bit more mature, comes back, learns his lesson, knows that the Steelers is where his heart is. That's my little bold prediction.
That's a very, very long pending bet. If this goes into 2027, that's when we're going to find that out, and we're going to have who we're going to have as quarterback then. It'll be some guys.
I reckon he'll be back. I reckon he'll be back around 2023, 2024.
So he's gonna leave the Steelers this year.
He'll leave the Steelers this year. Go to somewhere else. Get
going
paid.
to Vegas.
I don't think he's going to Vegas. Something to me says that he would go to like a I mean, the LA Chargers have got some good wide receivers, but
Arizona.
Well, they got DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, true.
The LA Rams might find a way to get some money. I don't know. I just think he's going somewhere on the West Coast. Even San Francisco, if they can find the money for him, if they go get, a decent quarterback out there outside of Garoppolo. What's this one from Bill Davis? Maybe you Aussie should tell like it really is going on in Australia. Can't move. I don't know. What that's.
Probably because all our borders are still dealing with everything going on. But I'm in a lovely spot. I'm on the coast. I'm fine. I'm near the beaches. I'm all good.
Yeah, I'm all good where I am. Snowman. The Clowns couldn't score 100 points even if you gave them 99. Classic.
That was pretty close last week with 48. Yeah, this is going to be, I said the Browns going to win Super Bowl. It's only a joke, but here is a good chance. They get some players back versus the Chiefs tomorrow. If they beat the Chiefs, well, are they the real deal? Maybe. If they're playing good football. This is hard because we do have the Ravens and the Browns above us, and we won the division and all these things. And here we are talking off-season football. And I think even last week we thought we were going to have a good game against the Browns, and now it's who we're going to draft, and they've been doing office moves and stuff like that. So very interesting times. Let's put it that way.
That's it. I mean, you know what else? I'm wearing the Devin Bush jersey, right? I'm wearing Devin Bush Legend jersey they got this week. I like them. They're nice and thin, so they're good for us down here when it gets hot in the summer. I sort of thought about it, and when we talk about that stolen season, Bud didn't, and I just was thinking about it. Bud, we didn't get to see the finish of Bud's career in Pittsburgh. He's ended up on the sidelines. Devin Bush, we didn't have him either. And I mean, I've said it in a couple of games this season, Mark. You know this from that Slack channel, and when you and I have been chatting as well during games. there are certain games you can just see where they're missing Devin Bush. Like Spilly did all right, through in parts of the season. Vince and Avery Williamson did what they could, but you just see where they're missing Devin Bush, or before Devin Bush, missing a Shazier, like the jersey you're wearing right now. And I just was thinking about it, and that's when I ordered this jersey a couple weeks ago. I'm like, I'm really excited to see Devin Bush year 3 next year. I mean, that's going to be awesome to get him back into this defensive lineup. Highsmith will have a full off season. Fitzpatrick will be more adjusted to the team. Terrell Edmonds is coming on. There's lots of really good things that are coming for this team. So there's lots of reasons to be hopeful next year, even with the change that's going to be going on. Really, with the change that's been going on. But look, for all the listeners out there, we've got a couple of minutes now. So we did say we give you a little bit of Q&A. So I'll bring up a couple to kick it off. But yeah, it's been a great show. There's been some great live chats right now for anyone that's on the audio side. But there's a lot of questions here. I grew up with Terry Bradshaw. We're used to winning. We don't. We're not here to lose. It's not about tanking. Ben had to do it all by himself. The classic. Lance Williams. Ben didn't get his elbow rebuilt to hand the ball off.
And that's maybe why he might have this next season, because if you go and get that surgery, do you just get that surgery for one season? I don't think you do. So you get that surgery and he has a off season and he can work out with the fellas and maybe he can start to build something again. Maybe this year we were a bit too hopeful. We were never meant to go to the playoffs and it was meant more of a rebuilding year. But we just gave everyone a lot of hope, and then we got 12-4. Maybe we can build off that. There's so many ways you can go with it, because he did come back from injury, and we kind of forget that because Alex Smith almost passed away, and he's got the comeback player, and of course he's going to get it, and that's a crazy story, and I wish him well. But Big Ben had his elbow, got done, hard off season, then came back, and has still got the team 12-4 wins. If you look on the positive. And then maybe this season we can work things out and see what happens. But it definitely comes down to just, better play calling and running the ball and not being so predictable, which they were, that really hurt us in the end, didn't it, Matty?
That's it. Tyler W says it. So we got the surgery to lose game. Look, I actually thought Ben's interception rate this season was decent over the course of the season. I thought he'd throw a couple more than he did. But this is the point that Tyler's picked up on a frustration, if we're going to air them all out, that I have had a little bit this season. You came back and you said you came back to win a Super Bowl for those guys. Why? The Steelers didn't have the offensive line to do it. I'm not sure that we had the running back core to do it. But, you're not going to be able to throw it 50 times a game and win the Super Bowl. You're just not. So, unless you're Lamar and you're going to run as well. So you're this dual threat. So they don't know if you're going to run it or they don't know if you're going to pass it, whatever it is. And even then, Lamar can't do it. So, I just don't. This is the thing. I want to. If Ben stays and he plays next season, this is where we'll find out how much Ben really wants to win that Super Bowl or not, or whether he's going to give into that ego side, which, elite sportsmen do need a level of ego out there to perform and be competitive. But this is the thing. Can he sacrifice some of that ego and some of that and take that even humbler approach that he tries to talk about to get the Steelers that Super Bowl? This is the thing that he's going to have to weigh up. That's the challenge he's got.
Port Nquemba says, can Big Ben get surgery to make him 5 years younger? I wish that would be good. Yeah, this is
in the legs, or is it in the mind? Because this is the thing, he's going to have to move around and in and out of the pocket. That'd be the difference.
Needs to be more mobile and I don't know. I would like to see a great run for him next year, because I don't think he re-signed Ben. I think it has to be the last year, then you figure things out. But yeah, he did his surgery. Maybe we move on from that, and I think it would be the best thing ever if you can get a certain run game where the defense has no idea what you're going to do. If it's going to be a run up the guts for 7 yards and then pushing the pocket forward, the next minute it's 5 wide and Big Ben's, the way how we used to be with AB and stuff like that, and we had Bill, those offenses back in 3 years ago, 4 years ago, you could almost guarantee they were going to score a touchdown. And now we're we have an okay offense, but we just don't have that anymore. The first quarter and the first drive is like, you might as well give the ball back to the other team, pretty much.
100%. Marlon Nicholson questions whether Ben needs to get on Weight Watchers. I think they're called WW now, and says Steelers need a running game and a good RB tandem with a physical, imposing offensive lineman as far as offense. Ben needs to lose some weight as well. Well, yeah, we do need a run game. And Ben needs a run game, and we do need offensive linemen that go down there and crush those defensive linemen in front of them. Ryan O'Toole brings up a fair point. Ben made a lot of bad decisions because he only had 2 seconds to throw, or he would have gotten killed. Fine. And going back to last week's game, though, how can I understand, they might have gone experience with Matt Filer over Dotson. I don't know why, because Dotson's was playing lights out. But Matt Filer was backpedaling the whole time. This is the thing. We talk about having 2.2 seconds and it's not Ben's fault. Not necessarily. It is going to be completely Ben's fault. But equally, what are we doing to change it from the Steelers? And that's exactly the sort of thing when we talk about why 2020 is the Steelers' stolen season. Because there are so many things that intertwine with each other that cost what was like all the ingredients a lot of the ingredients were there for that successful Super Bowl team, and we just couldn't get it done.
And we had a great defense, which we name all the players, and some of those blokes are not going to get it back. We'll get back Bush, and when we get back Dupree, it still hurts. I know we try to be like with the offense, and hopefully our next show we can go into some other cool things. But I know Steeler Nation out there, BTSC, this one really does hurt because I think we all thought we had a chance to do something, and when your team doesn't show up, like I said, something has to change, and that just hurts my little Australian heart. They just gotta play better, and they didn't play better. So I don't know, Matty. What do you do?
What do you do? You move on and you keep going and you trudge along and you get there in the end, hopefully. But look, Steelers fans, thank you for joining us. If you've joined us live here on YouTube on your Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, for those of you listening on the audio podcasts, thank you so much. A lot of you have been really loyal since we first started as a podcast only show earlier in the season. There's lots more to come. Keep joining us through the off season because we're going to bring so much to the fore about how these Steelers can change the last decade, win a Super Bowl next year, or come close and at least build toward the next one. Have a great rest of your weekend. We look forward to joining you next week.
Go Steelers.
Go Steelers.